Let's face it, como están las cosas, we could all use a little boost now and again. Whether for workout recovery or putting a bit more antioxidant in our body, Snapcrack has a solution with their new IV infusions. Snapcrack offers a selection of 20-minute IV vitamin drips with varying health benefits. From NAD+, which helps with anti-aging, brain function, and stress, to one of those hangovers, because let's face it, dry January was pretty much over by brunch on January 1st. You can even build your own drip with up to 3 vitamin pushes. And like other Snapcrack offers, you can pay per treatment or take advantage of a $99 monthly membership, currently offered at the Miami Beach, Coral Gables, and Hialeah locations. But make sure to check snapcrack.com for the full Boost Day schedule and location updates. So visit snapcrack.com today to learn more and find a location nearest you. Because after all, when you feel better, you do better.
Hey Ish, do you think we could share with our Pero Primos our secret weapon to having the energy to record a new episode every single week?
Yeah, I think we can let them in on it. It's Bolé.
What's Bolé, you're asking? Only our favorite way to combine fresh food and bold flavors in a way that powers us through each episode.
Exactly. Every week before we record, we head to Bolé and we build a...
True story.
It is true, yeah. We build a customized bowl starting with a base like forbidden black rice or leafy greens, el arroz prohibido. Then we add veggies like ginger broccoli and a protein like some lemon chicken, or if you're vegetarian, some miso glazed tofu.
And don't forget, I like to add extra flavor with add-ons like creamy garlic and herb sauce or avocado.
Honestly, the combinations are pretty much endless, and they've definitely got something for everyone. And that's because Bolé is on a mission to inspire bold living through the power of fresh food. And if there's one thing we are on this show, it's bold.
So with locations throughout Florida, including their latest Brickell location, we know when you visit Bolé.com, you'll find one near you.
So start experiencing Bolé today and enjoy fresh food to fuel your life.
Hey everyone, this is DJ.
And this is Ish.
And this is Season 5 of Pero Let Me Tell You.
You know that I can't smell or taste. It's weird because I can't really taste things, but I've had like very specific cravings for certain foods.
That's bizarre that you're craving things.
Yes.
Yes. Full well.
So are we recording?
We are recording.
Well. Welcome everybody. Where are we? Episode 191.
191. Yes.
Welcome to Pero Let Me Tell You, everybody. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everyone. Now, again, this is week 2 of Darian testing positive.
This is the Corona Chronicles.
It's not
the Corona Chronicles.
It's not as fun as the Chronicles of Narnia, but it's what we got.
I don't have a wardrobe.
No. Do you have a lion?
Isn't it great that in Spanish the word wardrobe, escaparate. Escaparate is such a great word.
I feel like escaparate, you know what it is immediately. Like it's just
escaparate.
Right. But I'm saying like the word kind of sounds like what you're expecting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like onomatopoeia.
Right. If that was applicable to furniture, yes.
Yeah. So happy Friday, everybody. Episode 191. Here we are. Yes. As Ish said, another episode of the Corona Chronicles. Yep. Escaparate is like cacharro, you know?
Yes, that's another one. That is such a good one.
Isn't it great, though, how in Spanish, you know, okay, un transportation is a very specific type of car.
Yeah, it's not a good car.
What's always a conversation? Es que mira, Luisito acaba de llegar de Cuba y él nada más necesita un transportation.
Un transportation. Like a Honda Civic would be un transportation.
Like a 1995 Honda Civic.
Yes,
you mean like
the first ones, yeah.
Un Corolla.
Un Corolla,
you know,
for sure.
Un transportation, right? I think it's so funny that like, I don't know if it's just Cubans that do this or this is just a Miami thing, but how they totally like appropriated the word transportation to mean a shitty car, a shitty rundown car.
Well, we're kind of infamous for taking words, like what is it, the episode of Capasi would say, la casina, which is lacquer thinner,
See.
chirro, sheetrock,
Oh, bueno, you know my chirro story.
Yes, we do.
Maybe I should say it again. It's been 191 episodes. All my life, like most, people that grow up in, again, either a Cuban or a Latin household, I would always hear the word chirro. Like when you were going to build something, tú le ponías chirro. Las paredes eran de chirro.
Right.
Me thinking that it was CHIRO.
Right.
Chirro. With an accent, right. Maybe. Chirro with an accent, maybe
two R's. Chirro.
Right. And that's just what I thought it was. Chirro. When you build a room or you build a house, the drywall is chirro. Until one day I was at Home Depot and I see where they had the chirro. I mean, I was probably in high school.
Right.
And I the chirro, Chico, the dry panel, the
sheetrock,
the sheetrock. Bueno, the chirro. Uh-huh. I see that the strips on the side said sheet rock, and I'm like, sheet rock. This is called sheet rock. Chirro, and it was like I had like. When in movies, when like the heavens open up and the light comes down and you're like, ah, like that type of scenario, I was like, oh my God, sheetrock is chirro. Like mind blown.
The best part of that is I wonder like if there ever was a Spanish word for it, quote unquote, because I feel like everybody's just always said chirro.
Well, yeah.
Right?
Well, in Cuba, they don't have... Well, in Cuba, they don't have chirro. Porque acuérdate que las casas en Cuba son hechas de placa.
That's right. Puro concreto.
Right? In Cuba, there's colonial architecture, and then there's placa. There wasn't any, like, postmodern...
No, there was no evolution of architecture in Cuba.
No. We had colonial architecture, and then, boom, placa. I love how, like, including my parents, they're like, no, porque las casas en Cuba duran para siempre. Ahí en Cuba venía un huracán y las casas nada, porque eran de placa. And I'm like, yeah, that's why they're so fucking ugly, because they're made of concrete, like the roof, the walls, the interior walls. I mean, it's like a concrete shoebox.
It's like un cajón is basically what it is.
That's exactly, that's another great word, un cajón.
Cajón.
Oh my God, do you know it's so funny? Okay, I don't mind sharing this story because whatever, it was a long time ago. So listeners, okay, again, growing up in a Cuban household, like, there's certain words you just don't need, right? That exist in English. That not only growing up in a Cuban household, but growing up in Miami, right?
Double whammy.
There's certain words that you just don't, they're not part of your, what is it, your lexicon? They're not part of your... Vernacular. They're just not, especially if you are from Westchester in Miami. It's just, they're not. So here I was, I think it was like 1991. I was like 10 years old, and I was at Checkers.
Okay.
Checkers, the hamburger place. And I'm seeing it right now. And I'm like, yeah, I'll have a Ca-hoon burger.
Oh, you didn't never heard of Cajun.
I'm from Miami, from a Cuban household. Why would I have heard the word Cajun? Like, do you think that my parents bought Zataranns growing up? No, we bought Goya. Is it true? Did your parents buy Zatarann? And your parents are more civilized than my parents because your parents came here as kids or teenagers. Mine didn't. No, we bought, Goya, Mahatma. We didn't buy Zataranns. We didn't even buy Uncle Ben's, let alone Zataranns.
At most, you would buy a Mahatma.
Mahatma, yeah, that was. So Why would I know what Cajun food was at 10 years old in Miami? Like,
Ca-hoon.
coming from a Cuban household, Ca-hoon burger. The spiciest we got was sofrito.
Y cuidado.
So there was, hi, I'll have a Ca-hoon burger. But see, my excuse is that I was like 10 years old when this happened.
You
right?
were a kid, right.
But fast forward like 20 years later, I was already in my 30s when a very, 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 very good friend of mine, who shall remain nameless, we were at Chico, the Quiznos. We were at Quiznos. And he orders before me, and he's like, "I'll have the Mesquite sub," and I'm like, "Dude, it's mesquite." So, have I told this is a story our listeners will love? And we have a few listeners, one in San Antonio and another listener in Tennessee that are very good friends of mine, and we have this mutual friend in general. But I think our listeners would enjoy this story. So I have a very good friend that he is part Dominican and part Puerto Rican. So I don't know. There's a mishmash of words that he uses, that I just sometimes I'm like, wow, right? So him and I worked together for some time, and I would hear him every day order that sandwich that you have a lot of times in the morning, that it's Cuban bread and croquetas. What do you call it?
Croqueta preparada?
Right. I would hear him order this every day, and he would always mispronounce it completely. And I never
You never corrected him?
I never corrected him because it was so hilarious. It was so hilarious that he would say something like croqueto preparado, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But I never corrected him. Never corrected him until actually one day his wife was like, because his wife is Cuban,
right.
And his wife heard him, and she was like, "Babe, what are you talking about?" And that's what I told her. I'm like, "Dude, I heard you order that every day for like months, and I never said a word." He's like, "Son of a bitch."
It brought you a little pleasure in the workday.
Yeah. But, he had a Mesquite sub, and I had a Ca-hoon burger.
Tremendo mezcla.
Yeah, Listen, growing up, like, I remember, like, these are, when we talk about really, like, the differences, especially when you were a kid, that you knew your family was very different. And especially, we've talked about this before, that, like, even though you and I went to different elementary schools, which geographically were not that far apart,
at all.
My elementary school was predominantly white, whereas yours was more mixed.
Yeah, yours
right?
might as well have been like in Nebraska.
Right. And I remember everybody, like, when we would talk about in class about, like, oh, what did he have for dinner last night? Oh, we had meatloaf. We had, fried chicken. We had, like, steak. We had all these things. And I'd be like, what did your family have for dinner last night? And I'd be like, yo, nosotros carne con papa. Dude, do you remember the 90s, that thing Chicken Tonight?
Oh my, not until right now. I had totally forgotten about it.
So Chicken Tonight listeners, exactly, were these like kind of dressings that you would cook chicken in, similar to like Campbell's cream of mushroom. You could cook chicken in there, and they had like different types of one.
They were always dry, right? Like were dry rubs.
No. They weren't dry rubs. They came in like what looked like a spaghetti sauce jar.
Okay.
No, like a spaghetti sauce jar.
Oh, okay.
Right. They were liquid. And they had like chicken cacciatore, whatever that was. And I'll never forget, we were at the supermarket and I had to beg my mother to buy that. And she's like, "Pero qué es eso? ¿Qué tú le pones a eso?" And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be stuck eating freaking like carne con papa and like
boliche.
All this stuff. Boliche. No, my grandmother made some good boliche. Or like, fricassé de pollo. Actually, I had a conversation this week about fricassé de pollo, and I'm like, Yeah, no. Fricassé de pollo, the Cuban fricassé de pollo compared to the French fricassé de pollo, like day and night. So,
Well,
you
I
know,
mean, they're
I was
completely different
actually,
cultures. It makes sense.
yes. Well, yes, but like our fricassé de pollo is so inferior. And I was actually talking to somebody who's pretty Cuban about it. And yeah, and he was like, no, I was like, no, there's no comparison. So yeah, Ca-hoon burger. So here we
The
are.
Ca-hoon burger.
Happy episode 191, people.
Seriously. So before we get into the topics, I just want to do a really quick and kind of one of the topics, or I just wanted to bring it up honestly to you. So over the past weekend, last weekend, went to go see On Your Feet at the Miracle Theater in the Gables. So if you're in town, it's running till March, guys. Go see it. It's you and I saw it on Broadway. You saw it when the tour came down in the Arch. It's just such a good time. And this was also directed by former guest on the show, Andy Senio Jr. So go check it out. But that same weekend, that Friday, I actually went to go see Carlos Santos from Gentified do his stand-up thing at Villain Theater.
Oh, from Spanish Aquí.
From Spanish Aquí Presents.
Yes.
And he was,
of course it's Carlos.
Of course it's Carlos. He was hilarious. But the reason I bring it up is because, so we get there and he was the headliner, so there was some acts before him. We're outside waiting for them to let us come in, whatever. These two girls start talking to us. And so, okay, they're, like 20-something-year-old girls, cute girls, whatever. So when it's time to go in, they're like, oh, how many in your party? And I was like, oh, 4, whatever, fine. We can, sit next to us, no big deal. So we go, they seat us like in the front row, essentially, right? Like in the corner, but the front row. So it's Jose, me, and then the two girls. I very quickly realized the error of my ways because these two girls would not shut up. Now, not only would they not shut up, but like when the comedians were talking, they would like talk back at them, not in a mean way, but just like, I'm part of the act and blah, 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 blah. So this kind of went on, and the first 3 comedians were very like, play it off, like, oh, okay, this and that. Do you know that Carlos actually had them kicked out of the theater?
But wait, were they loud enough that the comedians,
yes,
it was affecting their act?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yes. To the point where Carlos literally at one point was like, hey, so I don't think you're having a good time, and I know the rest of the audience isn't, so why don't you leave? And the girl was like, like, are you being for real? Are you being serious? And he's like, yeah. Like, I think you should leave.
Oh, were they being like condescending?
It's not even that they were being condescending. They were literally just carrying on conversations amongst themselves, pero like a full volumen.
Oh yeah, that's not cool.
And it turns out, because so after the show was over, I went to the side door, Carlos came out, I said hi. And it turns out though that it's a group of 4 kids. They had been there like 2 weeks before and done the same thing. And I'm thinking, coño, oye, these tickets weren't $2. Like, you paid this money to go sit and essentially have a conversation and not even pay attention. Like, why would you do that? Like, to this day, I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm like, I don't understand the mindset of someone who goes and does that. Like, coño, if you're going to go to a show, you're going to the show to enjoy the live performance, right? I mean, I can't get
Well, some people just like to like go to one of these venues to just like drink and hang out, and maybe the show for them is kind of secondary, which it shouldn't be. I mean, because
but it's a comedy club.
If you want to do that, just go to a but if you want to do that, just go to a bar, right? But the act should be front and center as it should. That's why you're paying to do that. So that that could be it. And just the people that are just completely oblivious to their surroundings, that it's all about them, right?
Yeah.
And their space and their world, and it's like, oh yeah, and the fact that you said they were front row.
Like I was telling Jose, I'm like, bueno, todavía if they were like in the back of the theater, probably would still be annoying, but whatever. And no, Carlos had them escorted out. Carlos literally, like, maybe
did they put up a fight?
They didn't put up a fight, but because, okay, so it was 2 girls and 2 guys. The guys, I guess, were not as buzzed. And at one point, one of the girls and the guy like went out, and the other 2 were still there. And at that point, that girl was like like on her phone. Like, I mean, she was just so not engaged with what was happening 10 feet in front of her that, like, literally Carlos was like, I think you should leave. I think you should leave. I don't think you want to be here. I think you should leave. And it got very awkward, especially because I'm sitting next to these people.
Right. And obviously when they left, everybody clapped, right?
Yeah, they did. So
yeah.
Moral of the story, guys, if you go see Carlos Santos doing stand-up, don't talk. Don't carry on conversations outside of the realm of laughing and the occasional acknowledgement, because he will kick your ass out. But I just love the fact that he felt so empowered to do it too, because I've never been to a show where the comedian just kind of said, you know what, pa fuera. You know,
dude, don't you remember that time we had a live recording that we kicked somebody out of the bar?
Wait.
I'm just kidding.
I'm like, wait,
no.
I there? But like, and then,
yeah, I was about to say we haven't done a live recording in a while, but yeah, because COVID.
Yeah, there's that whole pandemic thing. But like, I don't know. It just showed. It's kind of cool. Like he felt that empowered, right? Like I don't know that I would feel that way. I think I would try to play it off.
Well, but I mean, he was also the main act, right?
Right. But I'm saying, like, if you and I right now, to your point, like if we had a live recording, right, and people show up, and I mean, I guess it's different because we don't charge, but so anybody could just walk it out the street. I don't know that I would just kind of try to be like, yeah, ha ha ha, whatever, okay, shut up, bye, go away. I don't know that I would feel strong.
I think it depends because I think that there's one thing with somebody being heckler light, if you will. But there's another thing with somebody interrupting in this case, your act or your flow. And if like we were doing a live recording, like we've done many times in bars or in different venues, and there was somebody who completely was and when it's somebody responding to what you're talking about and right. kind of engaging with you, even if the engagement is a little bit, off. But if it's somebody who's like purposely just completely oblivious to their surroundings again, and is just interrupting you and interrupting your flow, yeah, I would probably tell them to either, put it down or like, yeah, have them escort. I don't know if I would have them escorted out, but I would definitely, embarrass them. Right. And I wouldn't do it maliciously, but I'll be like, if it's like somebody on their phone, like talking on their phone, I'll be like, hi, can you take that call outside? Or like, can you tell that person you'll call them back?
Right,
and then they're going to feel like an ass in front of everybody.
Yeah,
so
calling on their shit.
Yeah.
But that's just, I really wanted to share that story with you because I was like, as much as I respect Carlos to begin with, I was like, okay, notched it up just a little bit. Yeah, no, like I was like, damn boy, you go. Oye, mi gente, Ish here. Now, I can't stop talking about UFit and the progress I've made on my goals thanks to my personal trainer. Pero have you heard about the new UFit? Across 80 locations, they've got new state-of-the-art equipment, deadlift platforms, and of course, group classes, which is what I'm most excited about. Their new HIT Plus group classes. Part of UFit's Premium Plus memberships, these high-impact intensity training sessions combine strength training and cardio. O sea, the best of both worlds. So you're sweating, you're toning, you're building muscle, de todo. And each class has 10 people or less and is led by a certified personal trainer. Así que no te preocupes, there's a HIT Plus class for every intensity level, so you can find one perfect for you and your goals. Even with all the new, what hasn't changed? UFit is still affordable with gym memberships starting at $10 a month. So visit ufit.com and get started today with your fitness goals. But please note, amenities do vary by location. At UFit, you come first.
Good for him. So I actually want to bring up something we talked about, I believe, 2 weeks ago. It was the last episode that we recorded together before the Corona Chronicles, my Corona Chronicles. So we had talked about a couple of weeks ago about here in Florida and really around the country, different school boards that are banning books.
Oh, yeah, right? I gave a last
and yeah, you did. And how a lot of these books have to do with LGBTQ issues, and a lot of them have to do with things having to do with racism and, right. Black history and things like that. And we have an awesome listener in Texas who she's one of our favorite listeners, and she is a teacher, and there was a bit of an exchange between her and I asked her, hey, I would love to know your thoughts on this because you are a teacher, right?
She's in the
And
thick of it.
we always say that, like, we have opinions on things, but we also don't like to take people's voice in spaces that are for them to say things, and I think that obviously we can all have an opinion on this, but as a teacher, you have a perspective that we don't. And she actually gave a response, and I just sort of wanted to read it because I thought her response was so eloquently put. So, and again, this is regarding books being banned in schools. So here's what she said. She said, I have so many thoughts on this whole book ban issue, but I will speak about it pertaining to Texas. Currently, there is a list of 850 books that are currently on the ban list. That's a lot. The books being targeted deal with racism in Texas, LGBTQ issues, history of racism in America, and books with explicit descriptions of sex, and YA books.
Young adult books.
Young adults. Oh well, there we go. I feel like an ass. Books. I feel certain that certain books may not be entirely age appropriate for certain students. So maybe these type of books need to be in a high school, library, or college. However, students need to read books that they can enjoy, relate to, or see themselves in. My job and hope as an educator is to share my passion for books and inspire them to fall in love with reading. As an educator, if we aren't teaching our students about past injustices or events that occurred in history, we are bound to repeat them. One of the books that is on the ban list is called Ground Zero by Alan Gratz. It's been suggested to be banned because it lists the race of every character and depicts the soldiers as callous, evil, and terrorists. Of course, this is the opinion of the person writing it, wanting it banned. Books are meant to make you feel, think, and change. If they all become banned, what is left? We cannot all think the same. If we continue to do this, we are no better than those who burned books in the Holocaust. Lastly, we are on a slippery slope of other books being banned in everyday life. Who's to say it will stop the school? So I thought that was very well put because, like, she even talks about how there's certain books that maybe are
an elementary school kid probably shouldn't be reading.
Right. That are age appropriate, maybe when you're older, when you're a young adult, a YA, and or of a certain age, right? But that censorship is always the wrong way to go about it, right? There's another way that you can maybe protect younger readers of certain topics or curtail certain things, but censorship, in this case banning a certain book, is always the wrong way to go. Yeah. So I thought that her answer was very thoughtful, and again, from the perspective of a teacher, because at the end of the day, I mean, I have a kid that's in school. I mean, he's in second grade, but especially as he gets older, what I want for him to receive from his educators are thought-provoking questions, whatever they may be. I think that is what you want your kid to get from an educator, is to think outside the box, to see things that they didn't see, to either, as she said, find yourself in a certain book or in a certain character, or see the perspective of someone that is different to you. And that is so important. And unfortunately, we're going away from that. We're again going in little echo chambers, and
but I mean, book banning is nothing new. I mean, book banning has always been around, right? I mean,
book banning has always been around, but I feel that now it's like it's gone like.
But I guess my question to you, and I've had similar questions for you in this vein prior. let me just say, book banning is bad. I don't agree with book banning, but it's been going on for decades, right? Do you think it is worse than it used to be, or do you think that because of the day and age we live in, we're hearing about it more than we may have in the past?
No,
because for instance, I don't know that necessarily in the 60s, right? When Catcher in the Rye has been banned left and right, and I don't know how many districts, right? So I don't necessarily know that in the 60s, if Indiana was banning Catcher in the Rye, that Florida heard about it, right? Whereas,
so you're saying that this has always been happening, but now we're hearing about it more?
I think so. I think so. Again, I'm glad we are, because we have the opportunity to do something about it. But I don't know necessarily that it is quote unquote worse than in the past. I feel like it's I feel like we're hearing about it more. Am I making sense?
I can't answer that question without looking at data. I mean, I don't know what the amount of books that were banned
right,
or were or being banned 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, on and on, what they are compared to today. But what I can say is that whether we know about it more today because of either social media or just because it's on the news, the reason why these books are being banned, right, are not legitimate reasons.
Oh, and they never have been.
And they are completely political, and not only are they political, they are cultural warfare, right? Because, for example, one of the books that now wants to be banned for a different reason is To Kill a Mockingbird. And my son's middle name is Atticus because of To Kill a Mockingbird, right? To Kill a Mockingbird in the last in the last several years, a lot of teachers, it's not that it was banned, but a lot of teachers were very cautious on how they taught it in school because the book says the N-word a lot.
Right. Similar to Huckleberry Finn.
It says the N-word a lot, right? And the argument was that if you are a black student in a classroom that is predominantly white, and you're reading To Kill a Mockingbird, which is a wonderful, wonderful book with just a story that every kid should read, right? It could be very uncomfortable for that kid, and that's very understandable, right? So the argument for, and I'm giving To Kill a Mockingbird as an example on how it's a book that's always ruffled some feathers, but the reason now is for a different reason. The reason why they want to ban it now is for a different reason. So I could certainly understand how, again, if you are a black kid, you're one or two black kids in a class that's predominantly white, even if it's in the context of literature, hearing that word is going to make you very uncomfortable, right? That's a very legitimate argument. The reason why certain people want to ban To Kill a Mockingbird now is because of white fragility. Oh, because, kids shouldn't be made feel guilty. They shouldn't feel bad about this. They shouldn't be ashamed to be white because of the issues or the subjects in To Kill a Mockingbird, because you're making kids feel bad about being white, white fragility, right? So those are two very, very different arguments, regarding the book, right? The same goes with these books that, and I looked into all of this, into all these books that are on these lists that are LGBT, themed or are on LGBTQ matters. They want to ban like a lot of these books because there may be one scene or one sentence that is sexually suggestive. It's not that the book is, or like the main narrative of the book is. Right. It's that one sentence, right, or one passage may be sexually suggestive, because it doesn't take a genius to know that if you're writing a book for YA, young adults, that centers around a book on LGBT issues, and discovering your sexuality, discovering that you're gay, sex is going to be part of that. Like attraction is going to be part of that.
However,
it doesn't have to be explicit.
However chaste it may be, it has right.
It doesn't have to be explicit. It doesn't even have to contain sex, but that is certainly going to be part of that evolution and part of that process. So now that's being banned. So now this is wrong. So the same books that are of like boy girl, subjects.
Where's the outrage?
That the girl's lusting over the guy, the football player, blah 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 in high school. All those like young what are they called? The Hollywood series or whatever.
The Sweet Valley High.
Yes, like all those like young adult teenage like books that have to do with like love and all that, which a lot of them they are sexually suggestive. Again, not explicit, but sexually suggestive. So if we had those same stories, but it was gay stories, I mean, would there be outrage? Yeah, there would there is outrage.
There is outrage. No, not would be. There is.
there is. So, it's people now wanting to make what I love, and this is one of the things now that I'm a parent that I can say, when people are like, because the children, and I don't want my children. I'm like, well, I want my kid reading that. Like, don't speak for all parents. Like,
but I also think, I understand from a parenting perspective, and again, I don't have children, but I understand from a parenting perspective, obviously wanting your kid to remain a kid as long as they can and all that wonderfulness. Fantastic. But I also don't understand what seems to be this, I must shield my child from all things at all times, because then your kid can't function in the world. Like your kid just won't be able to function in the world as in the workplace, in college, in life. And that's the part that is just bizarre to me, where it's just like you've set up this bubble. That bubble doesn't exist, guys.
It doesn't. And what's so interesting that, and the same goes to you, because both you and I are very big readers, right? We love to read. And I mean, I don't even know how many books I've read. My favorite book till this day that I've ever read, and I've read it like 4 or 5 times, I read in high school, which was 1984.
Same here.
By George Orwell.
Great Gatsby.
That is the Great Gatsby. There you go. That is my favorite book of all time. And I read that in high school. And that's a very political book. I mean, it doesn't get more political in 1984, right?
Yeah, it's not about Apple.
Right. If I wouldn't have read that book in high school, because I remember reading that book and understanding like the politics behind, thinking about the politics behind it and the machinations of what a government can do and all that.
Well, it was part of the whole dystopia section.
Right.
Yeah.
And I you've known me since I was 10 years old. I've always been a very political person. And I've always wondered, was 1984 like a seed? Was that one of those things that like when I was becoming a young adult and a teenager, that I read it at the right time, that it sort of threw me into that lane, right? Maybe if I wouldn't have read 1984, I wouldn't have been as political or outspoken. Who knows, I'm surprised that, they haven't tried to ban the Great Gatsby either,
They have.
The Great Gatsby?
There are some districts
for what
that try
for what, like income inequality.
I don't know the exact reason, but one of the reasons that I do know that it has been on banned book lists is because Books and Books here in the Gables, in the outside patio, when you walk in, they have a huge double doors, and it says, "We read banned books," and then on either side of the door, it has like the spines of books. And it has the titles of all books that have been either currently or at one point in time banned. And Great Gatsby was one of them.
Why on earth would the Great Gatsby be banned? Like, I can't think of...
I don't know.
Because the Great Gatsby doesn't really have sex, no?
It has extramarital affairs.
Right, but it doesn't have like an explicit sex
no,
scene in the book.
No. It's... Not that I can recall. I mean, I've read that book like 6 times. So,
I read it a couple of years ago and wrote a paper about it. But we won't go there now.
I'm giving you my judgy face, and I'm glad you got the grade it got.
I know, but I had to write from the perspective of a high school person. We will not get into that now. Anyway. So what do you have? What's going on with you?
Well, hablando de todo un poco, I know you were talking about, housing structures earlier in the episode. And, well, this week, Miami got the dubious distinction. We are the least affordable city.
Hooray! Dale!
Were we in the running? Is this something we wanted to be?
Dude,
guys,
bro,
we don't have to
Bitcoin,
be number one in everything,
bro.
That's the problem, is that since I don't have Bitcoin, I can't go out and buy these brickle penthouses. Did you see the movie? And I'm about to apologize in advance for any of our listeners who live in Brickell, but did you see the movie that came out? I think it was last year with oh my god, the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy. What's his name? Chris. We have like too many Chris's.
Chris.
It's not Chris Evans. It's not Chris.
Anna
Faris's ex. Yes.
Ex-husband. Yes. Chris. I was going to say Chris Connolly. Wait, who's Chris Connolly?
From MTV?
Is that from MTV? Oh, God, Chris Connolly.
Bueno, ese mismo. Did you see that movie on Amazon Prime that he did where, like, they have to travel into the future because there's a war going on. They're drafting people. Okay, whatever. My favorite part of that movie was the opening scene when they first dropped them into Miami and the aliens arrived and completely obliterated Brickell. I was so happy.
Brickell? They completely obliterated my apartment at Marina Blue.
No, but I remember specifically seeing parts of Brickell and I was like, you know what? Acaba con todo. I don't care.
But the problem, okay, yeah, but the problem, and I actually was going to bring this up. The problem is not Brickell or even downtown.
It's the people who congregate in Brickell.
No, that's not the problem. That's not the problem because because I live there and I know that area well and I haven't been a real estate agent, but I've been in the real estate.
You're the only person
realm.
in Miami.
Right. I think that real estate agents and people in real estate have part of the blame because actually there's also, was it Forbes? There was a major publication that last week that found that real estate agents, and no disrespect to any listener who's a real estate agent, but they found that real estate agents in South Florida, they found, which this was like, that they have issues properly representing clients, that it's all about commission and about them making money. So in other words, that they found that realtors in Miami, their main goal is to get a closing and to make the money they need to make, right, then actually represent the buyer or the seller. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that when you're a realtor and you have a buyer or seller, you have a fiduciary duty with the buyer or the seller.
And what
right?
does fiduciary duty mean? For
a fiduciary duty is that you, in the context of a realtor, you have a duty to make sure that whatever it is that they want, either buyer or seller, that you put their interest, a lot of times having to do with money, in the front. Like that is it's part of your job to protect their interests. Mm-hmm. It's part of their job to maximize their interest, or in this case, maximize their earnings or their profits, whatever it may be. Okay. But the client, in other words, and their interest comes before yours, right? And that's what happens a lot of times with people here. And I've worked in the real estate business before, and that's something that I would see, that people were like always in a rush to close and get their commission. And I'd be like, but there's all these issues still left with the buyer and the seller. Like, and that can be a problem. But back to what you were saying, we've sort of been dabbling on this for quite some time. I've said the story of somebody, that we know in Hialeah that last year we were trying to find an efficiency for him.
Yeah.
And the efficiencies that we were looking for in Hialeah were like $1,000 for an efficiency.
Okay, but in all fairness, you were looking for an efficiency in Miami's Brooklyn.
That is true. That is true.
I mean, quien te manda? You went to Miami's Brooklyn.
That is true.
Yeah.
Look, the real estate market fluctuates, and that's fine. And I'm not against development. I am not against them building new things, even if it's luxury high rises. I mean, I lived in one. That was my dream, to live in one. And we got use of that pool, of that infinity pool in the sky. And if you're able to afford it, great. But I think that where civic responsibility comes in on both the professionals in real estate, but most importantly in city or county government, is that there has to be a balance of construction projects. So if you're going to build the high rises in downtown or in Hialeah or wherever you're developing, you also have to make sure that there is a proportionate amount of low income housing being built. Right? And rent control is also something that we have to start exploring here, because Miami and South Florida is one of the areas in the country where people make the least.
It's true.
Right? People here do not have...
I had to leave to go to New York to be able to... Then when I came back, I was able to make a good living.
More money. Right. Because now you're coming with New York experience.
Right. And New York salaries.
Right. So... that is where like the more civic and government part of it comes in, that you need safeguards in order to protect residents. Mira,
and we're talking
in
about
Miami
average
Beach
people
now,
too. We're not even talking about the homeless or veteran.
We're talking about
the average 2-income household. Being able to just have a place to live.
We're talking about even people that have like good incomes. Mira, they in Miami Beach, they passed an ordinance now where if the rent increase is going to be more than 5%, they have to give a 60-day notice, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise your lease is up, te viene el landlord, oye, te voy a subir la renta $1,000, and you got to find a place now in a matter of weeks.
Right.
And now you're looking at a saturated market where it's hard to find a place to begin with, and then somewhere in your budget. And don't forget that when you are moving, especially when you're renting, you have to give first month, last month, and the security deposit.
Yep.
So when you're already talking about a high rent, you're talking about $6,000-$7,000 that you have to give up front.
Yeah. Just
that's a lot of money.
Just to move in.
Just to move in. And it's a really big problem. It's a really big problem. And people, everybody's being greedy because there's money to be made. It's real estate. Everybody's being greedy. And the problem with that is...
There's only so much money to be made. That's my thing, is you can ask whatever you want for a property. You can ask whatever you want for rent. And I know people are saying like, oh, because it's all these people coming from LA and New York and this and that. Okay, great to an extent, but it's not like this. It's not like New York is being left a ghost town. You know what I mean? Like,
but there are a lot of people coming to South Florida, and the problem with the market fluctuations in real estate is that it takes is one house. That's all that it takes to completely change the market. If your neighbor says, I'm going to sell my house for $700,000,
and somebody pays it,
right? And somebody pays it,
that's it. Now that's the going rate. That's the going rate now. Yeah.
That is the comparable. Yeah. So when your neighbor 3 doors down sells their house, right, and their realtor looks at the comparables, what price do you think they're going to quote?
Yeah.
They're going to quote the house that sold last at $700,000. So you just made the whole pricing scheme of that area go up. So all it takes is a couple of houses to completely change the market, and that's a very sensitive and delicate balance. And it's a really really big issue. I My heart goes out to people that like have not been able to buy a house or people that are renting because it's you are in a very tough spot, and not to make it sound more dramatic if you have kids, but if you do have kids, moving now also becomes an issue with schools. Like, are you going to move with this? Are they going to have to switch schools? Are you going to move to another part of town?
It just complicates
it's like
things.
it's a plethora of different things that it's terrible. I mean, it's absolutely terrible because especially since Miami is still a community and economy that is so service based.
Yeah, very tourist space. Yeah,
tourist based, which in essence is a service industry.
Mm-hmm.
These are jobs that are not, they're not Bitcoin bros.
Right. Yeah. Historically, most servers are not raking in $100,000 a year.
Right. So these are the people that are being affected the most. And what sort of breaks my heart, and this is something that we talked about, I think last week or the week before, is that there were certain areas of Miami that were sort of bastions of
little havens
of like working class people. Hialeah was one of them.
Yeah. Sweetwater.
Was one of them. Little Haiti, Little Haiti is getting gentrified a mile a minute, right?
Yep.
And who's the one benefiting from that? It's not the people that live there. It's the developers and all the people that are investing there, right? And especially a community like Little Haiti, that these people have been there for generations, like, for 100 years. Like, you live in la casa de la bisabuela.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden you got to, pack it up. And
now, you're being sort of pushed out of there. It's a really big problem. It's a really big problem.
No, I mean, obviously Coral Gables is not Little Haiti, but did you hear about the guy? You've seen the big project that they're doing in Ponce that looks like they're building
the behemoth.
The behemoth, right?
Yeah.
So do you know that
house,
the little house, the guy?
Yeah, that guy's my hero.
Refuses to leave his house.
That guy's my hero. Yeah. So the story with that is, what Ish is talking about, listeners, is that in Coral Gables. So Coral Gables, for those of you who are not familiar with Miami, is an old part of Miami. It's pretty affluent, but Coral Gables was. I don't know if you know this, but when Miami was being set up, different villages and different areas were given a different theme. So Coral Gables was given a Spanish theme.
Yeah.
Parts of Miami Beach were given a Venetian theme, and like Opalaca was given a Marouche theme with like Moroccan architecture.
Which
and all that.
Why there's some random ass Moroccan architecture in Opalaca, and
the main street of Opalaca is called Alibaba Way. Yeah. So Coral Gables is very, like, it has like the Spanish colonial architecture. The main strip, Miracle Mile, they call it. It's filled with like shops and all that.
And they tend to be very, very big on historical preservation.
And also there's like a major height limit. Like, buildings can't be. It's a zoning nightmare. Like,
dude, if you have a house in Coral Gables, you have to like apply. You can only do certain colors to your house. I mean, there's a whole.
Yes.
It's a whole thing. Yeah.
The city of Coral Gables is one big HOA.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So off of Ponce de Leon, which is again one of the main thoroughfares in Coral Gables, they're building this behemoth of like, it's mixed retail. Office space and apartments. Now, granted, it is beautiful. I mean, I'm not gonna hate the fact that it is beautiful and it goes with the Spanish theme and all that. But it's enormous, and a lot of people, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people actually objected to that ever being built. But anyway, so to build that, it was an eminent domain case. Actually, I lied. It was not an eminent domain case. The developer bought out everybody because that was all residential. And there was this one man that refused to sell his house. And they offered him like $3 million for the house. And when I talk about the house, it's a regular single-family house.
Una de las casitas originales
in a regular lot. And he said that he's not selling it. because his parents came from Cuba in 1989, and they saved every cent they had to buy that house, and his parents have passed, and he is not going to sell the house. It pretty much looks like the house in Up. Like, that they built the entire development around the house because he did not give in. And you know what I say? I think that because that development is still under construction, so to access his house, you have to go through the construction zone.
Tiene que pasar tremendo trabajo.
But eventually, when they finish it, you know, the street will be open. I think that they should totally put a ton of balloons in front of on top of the house. Like, totally. But you know what? Good for him.
I love it.
Good for him.
I love him.
Good for him for giving the finger to like all these people and being like, "No, this is my house." And now, you know, you're not. I'm not going to leave.
And now you're going to have to figure out how to redo your entire.
Yes, because they had already done the plans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like demolishing his house. So what an inconvenience. It's like, good man. Like, give a finger to the establishment.
But yeah, no, I freaking love that guy. I wish I remembered his name, but
I hope, because the house is falling in a bit of disrepair.
Yeah.
I really hope that when they finish construction there, like different people in the community, like landscapers, handyman, painters, whatever, go and donate their time to help him put like the house back together. Right. You know, También, you know, the house has been completely surrounded by a major construction zone for like 4 or 5 years. So, I know the drilling. Oh.
If we were to go help him, I'd have to take a Claritin.
Oh. You have to put 10 air purifiers in the house. I remember the first time I ever saw an air purifier was at my brother's house. That they bought an ionic air purifier from the Sharper Image.
Aren't they ionic?
I remember legitimately asking my sister-in-law, what does ionic mean? And she didn't know. Until this day, I don't really know what ionic means. I think it has to do something with like the negative and positive. I don't know what.
Sure. I'm going to agree with you because I have no flipping clue what ionic means. But I know that all of those air purifiers are all ionic. There's never one that's non-ionic.
They're ionic.
So apparently it's not something you can be allergic to.
I guess not.
It's not like gluten-free.
Gluten-free. I'm still not 100% sure what gluten is. I know what it is, but I don't know what it is.
No.
Does it really matter?
It's not a real thing.
You know, I have to say, gluten-free didn't happen. Do you remember when gluten-free came out? Like, we're talking about, like, if this was, like, a movie. Remember when gluten-free was all the rage, and it, like, from literally 1 week to the next, everybody decided to be gluten-free?
Okay, wait. Did gluten-free happen?
This was around 2009.
Okay, so it happened way after Olestra. Okay.
Oh, my God, Olestra. That's the one that made you shit, right?
Yes.
I haven't thought about that for years.
Yes, the warning was literally may cause anal seepage.
That's what it said?
Yes.
Anal seepage?
Yes.
So in other words, don't wear it with white underwear.
No. If you're a santero, don't have those chips with Olestra.
Oh my God, yes. So what was it, like a type of fat?
It was like an oil substitute that was I think it was supposed to be healthier. I think that was like the whole, because I only remember it being with chips. I remember for some reason all the chips were being made with Olestra.
With Olestra, yeah.
And I think that's healthier, supposedly.
That's like I'll never forget. But you know, I was like college age, so you know it didn't really matter, right? Do you remember the Snackwells stuff, friend?
I used to like their cookies.
Their Devil's Food cookies.
Yes, they were so good.
Okay, that I'm like, oh, they have no fat. Yeah, but each cookie has like 400 calories. And God knows how much sugar and carbohydrates, but they had no fat. So I would literally buy a box. I'm like, oh, well, this is all fat free. Like,
but again, we were like 19, so
I was like 19, 20, so you know it didn't really matter. Like,
bring on the fat.
Yeah, that's what I would roll around McDonald's and be like, yeah, I'll have 4 double cheeseburgers, and you know, like, don't think about it twice. Like. So iba un buffet chino y acababa.
Ay, qué rico. You know I miss los buffet chino. I haven't been to one. In 2 years.
I don't.
Well, because we've established you don't do good at buffets in general.
I don't do good at buffets. I don't do good at Chinese buffets because I'm not a fan of Chinese takeout. I love Chinese food, like real Chinese food, but I'm not a fan of Chinese takeout. So listeners, there was a buffet here in sort of our neighborhood or vicinity. Yes, it closed, so I could say it by name. It was called King Buffet, and it was a Chinese buffet.
We went there a lot,
and I would get super grossed out because they would have the buffet line with like your typical Chinese fare, and then they would have like an island with like the desserts. But for some reason, they didn't know where to put it. In the island with the desserts, right, with like the little cakes and the jello and the pudding and all that, they would have like a huge fish. Like when the huge fish that's fried, that then you go and take a piece of the fried fish.
Pango.
Yes. And then estaba el pescado ahí con la espina with the fried eye, and I'm like, oh, I came here for chocolate cake, but I have to look at a fucking fried fish looking at me. Like, it was so gross.
But in all fairness, los postres en los buffet chino are never really that great.
Ishmael, is anything ever that great in a buffet chino?
Okay, no. But,
you know what? Actually, the only thing in a Chinese buffet
but
that
you know what I mean. The dessert at a Chinese buffet is like the desserts at IKEA. It tastes like dessert. I have like the only good thing are the macaroons, but no. Now that you said IKEA, well, I've told you this. To me, the desserts in IKEA don't taste like anything. And the funny thing is that every time I go to IKEA, so listeners, I go to IKEA for furniture and meatballs. This is a well-known fact. What else do you need?
I mean, I'm gonna go buy my Billy bookcase, but before I do,
I'm having lingonberries.
I'm having lingonberries with my meatballs. Dude, you know that I bought the meatballs in IKEA by packs and made them at home.
Oh, really?
Oh my god! One time I bought them. I bought everything. I bought the meatball, the lingonberry sauce, the gravy. You could buy it all.
Right.
And I think it was my parents that came over. My dad was like, "Ay, estas son las albóndigas más ricas que yo he comido en mi vida." And the truth was that I didn't do anything different to them because you know that I love to cook, and a lot of times, even when I buy pre-made food, I Sandra Lee it. Like, I upgrade it. Like, I'll make a sauce or like add something to it.
Pero no, aquí tú descongelaste y pa'lante.
My dad is like, "Ay, pero qué albóndigas más exquisitas." And I'm like, they're Swedish. Pero the desserts at IKEA don't taste like anything. The chocolate cake tastes exactly like the chocolate strudel. I'm sorry, the apple chocolate cake tastes exactly like the apple strudel.
That's what I mean. It tastes like the concept of dessert.
Yes, and that little vanilla sauce they put over it, that doesn't taste like anything.
No, it might as well be water.
It might just be where I'm going through now that I lost my sense of smell and taste because of COVID.
So, Mira, you could just go and have some IKEA desserts. You wouldn't be missing anything.
Yeah. And be like, oh, this tastes like on a regular Wednesday. So. Good things come from Sweden.
It's true.
Volvos, yes. IKEA, ABBA.
Yes, the Swedish chef.
Swedish meatballs. Sure a smorgasbord.
A smorgasbord. Ace of base.
Ace of base. Do you know what I used to call them? Ace de base.
Yes.
I don't know why. Anyway, is this soda time?
I think it is because once we've gone to the Chinese buffet, it's time to have a little. It's a little salty. So it's
your sodium intake is like through the roof, man.
Yes, you need a soda. Porque está salado.
So you're ready?
I am. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yes, I am going to go first.
All right.
I have a lot to say.
Oh, Lord.
I'm giving a flat soda this week.
Okay. So
I'm giving my flat soda to the IOC, the International Olympic Committee.
Okay. Great, because I wanted to bring. I think I know where you're going with this, and I wanted to bring it up, but I'm glad you did.
About the Olympics?
Yes.
Was that going to be your last soda?
No. It wasn't. but go ahead.
Okay. So, as many of you know, I'm an Olympophile, if you will.
It's a word. We made it up.
I made it up. I'm a big fan of the Olympics. I always have been. I collect memorabilia. I have a bunch of stuff. And I have had my very big concerns about the Olympics being in China, in Beijing. We talked about that, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever. This week, although this is not specific to Beijing, this week there was an issue where a Russian skater by the name of Kamila Valieva, she tested positive for a performance-enhancing drug, right? And so what happened was she tested positive, okay? And the IOC kind of was like, oh, we're not going to deal with this. We're going to send it to the Court of Arbitration. Okay? And the Court of Arbitration said, oh, she's 15 and not letting her compete will completely ruin her life.
What,
right?
Is she a rapist lacrosse player?
Right. It will completely ruin her life. So it will greatly prejudice her. I think that was the term they used. And as such, because she's 15, we're going to let her compete.
I think
now,
also. Hold on. I think they also, maybe one of the things that they also said was, because I know it's a performance-enhancing drug, but it's also a drug that is used for.
Well, but did you hear the
purposes, no?
No, you're right. But did you hear the excuse she gave?
Oh no, I didn't.
Okay, so the drug that she took is also a heart medication,
right?
But it is a performance-enhancing drug that has been on the banned list for decades because people have used it as a PED, although it is also used
as a legitimate use
for heart medication. She said that her grandfather was taking that medication and she accidentally took it.
Oh, wow. So bullshit.
Now, here's the thing. It's not a personal attack on her because she's only 15.
Wait, how do you accidentally take medication?
I don't know, right? But it's not a personal attack on her because she's only 15. And you know how that story goes. She has a team of people around her that are doing this to her and are telling her, take this and giving her this to take.
We've all heard the U.S. gymnastics team stories. Like, I mean, this is
right.
no different.
So this is not a personal attack with her. But she's Russian. And for those of you who don't know, the Russians in the Olympics in Beijing and the Olympics in Tokyo in 2020, but 2021 were not participating under the Russian flag. They were participating under what's called the ROC, which is the Russian Olympic Committee. What's the difference? It doesn't really matter. But the reason why they're not competing under the Russian flag, for the listeners who don't know, is because in 2014, when the Winter Olympics were in Sochi, Russia, it was found that there was a systematic and very sophisticated doping program with Russian athletes, that they were all doping and all taking performance-enhancing drugs. And the IOC, as a sanction, told them, hey, you can't compete with the Russian flag, so instead you're going to compete under the Russian Olympic Committee. What's the difference? Like, right. What is the difference, right? So they didn't even get a slap on the wrist. So she's coming from, unfortunately, I don't want to say country because that makes it sound like all Russians are in this, but she's coming from a system that their athletes, especially on an Olympic level, have a long and documented history of doping and drug use with performance-enhancing drugs. So they let her compete. Now, and everybody in the skating community internationally has been very, very against this. Tara Lipinski and Johnny Weir, which, you know, are like the kind of voices. Well, they literally are the voices of the U.S. Olympic figure skating, were very, very vocal about how they are totally against them agreeing to
look the other
to
way.
Let her participate.
Essentially, look the other way.
And then what came up this week that people started to get upset was they compared this story with the story of Shikari Richardson. Yep. Do you know her story?
Yes, I
do. Right. So for the listeners who don't know, Shikari Richardson was the girl who she broke, I think, a record in running, in sprinting.
She's like the fastest since FloJo or something like that.
Yes, and she would have made the U.S. Olympic team, and she was even favored to win in Tokyo. This would have been in the Tokyo Summer Olympics last year. And the U.S. Olympic team did not let her go to Tokyo because she tested positive for marijuana, which is not a performance enhancing
I was
drug.
going to say, have you met anybody who's been on pot? The fact that she was
that is an Olympian.
The fact that she was taking pot and was still able to like break records. Have you met the average pothead? They can't make it to the couch.
Well, she even said that she, somebody at her caliber, she's not a pothead, but she said that I think her grandmother, her mother was sick or had died, and she whatever. It doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter. But she was not allowed to go because obviously, although marijuana is not it's not a performance enhancing drug. Right. It is a banned substance. Right. So she wasn't allowed to go. So the technicalities of what happened in her case versus with the Russian girl were different because it was the U.S. Olympic team, the U.S. Olympic organization that made the call. So it didn't even get to a court of arbitration, but this girl went to the court of arbitration. So it's not a double standard because it was two different avenues of litigation or supervision that banned or didn't ban the athlete. But it's just in the grand scheme of things, in terms of optics, it's very bad. It's very, very bad. And these are the type of things that makes people lose interest in the Olympics. And it's a shame because I still believe that despite, the politics, if you will, of the Olympics and, a lot of times the burden of the host city and all that, I still believe in sport. And I still believe that sport at that level brings out the best in humanity. And it's a shame because from a PR perspective, they're not doing very good right now. So my flat soda goes to the IOC.
Yeah, and I think what's even worse about it is, under normal circumstances, one would even say, well, you know what? Maybe the skating community should boycott the next Winter Olympics. I mean, again, like you would say, like, well, maybe we could do this, but then it's these are mostly like this athlete. She's 15. These are kids who've been training their whole lives for this, and so for them to have to take that stand, it's not fair to them. Right? Like for them to say, I'm not going to go based on principle. I would respect the fuck out of them, but it's not fair that they, that they have to sacrifice their training because, Bente come mierdas in a conference room somewhere, don't want to upset, Putin on a horse or whatever the fuck it is.
Right. And I feel bad for her because I'm sure that she was just doing what she was told. But, as Billie Jean says, fair is fair.
Yes.
And if she took a PED, she should not be able to compete.
At all.
Right? So, yeah.
Well.
Moving right along.
Well, my soda is a little more frivolous. It's a positive soda. So, if there's one
positive soda, is that what we're calling it now?
Well, it's not a gasless soda. It's a bubbly soda, I guess.
It's a bubbly soda,
fizzy soda.
Like Michael Bublé.
Exactly like Michael Bublé. So if there's one thing that us Latinos love, it's el chisme. And
really?
Just a little bit. And, many, many times we have always relied on La Vieja Chismosa de Barrio to give us all of our gossip and to find out, what's going on in esta casa y esa es la querida de fulano and this, that, and the other, right? Uh-huh. Well, now, not to that level, but there is an app. And I have it. It's called.
I guess
it's called. It's the Nextdoor app. It's a legitimate app. It's a legitimate app. But so people go on it. Many times they'll go on it and they'll say, "Lost dog found. Whose dog is this?" Or, "Oh, the new restaurant just opened up down the street."
But it's turned into un chimorreo.
Because what it's turned into is great. Because a lot of times now with all the Ring cams and everything, people will post and be like, this person was on my front lawn yesterday. Does anybody know who they are? They were walking back and forth, and it's like, oh, I saw this happen, and blah, blah.
They took my Amazon package.
Yes. So it's great because I get all the notifications, and I'm always looking at it, and I'm always like, ay, pero robaron en la casa de hace 2 cuadras de aquí,
Qué pena if you were to see somebody robbing taking somebody's Amazon package. Oh my God, qué pena.
So, it's just a short and sweet. It's silly, but it brightens my day. And then especially there are times where people start getting into arguments with each other.
This is sort of reminding me of that Instagram page that we love, Overheard in Miami.
Oh, yeah. Parecido. Except this is actual first-hand accounts. And, there was even this one thread about how no sé qué restaurante wasn't as good as it used to be, and that's why I don't tip anymore. But then this other person said, well, that's not the fault of the server. And then this other person said, no, but if you don't want... It turned into this whole, like
right. So, in other words, it's turning into like what social media is, that nobody can just say something because everybody else will tell you something else.
Right, but since it takes into account, like, because when you first sign up, you put your zip code, so it takes into account your area, so it's a little more like shit you actually kind of care about, but not really, because it's all like gossipy. So it's wonderful. Nextdoor, check it out.
I'm sure that Nextdoor in Hialeah is like on another level.
Oh, that must be fun.
En apartamento.
That must be good.
See, I've told you that, like, with that grant that I'm working with, that federal grant of COVID, sometimes when I go to certain places and I speak to certain people, la vieja chismosa del barrio Ottavinira. La del apartamento 1 está vacunada, la del 2 también, la del 3 también. La del 4 no está vacunada, porque ellos vinieron de Cuba y estaban parrandeando y no se vacunó. And I'm like, I didn't ask none of this. Like, why are...
But she made your day a little easier.
Why are you telling me all of this? I did not ask. Oh, that's great. I have to tell you, these ring cams, like, I have mixed feelings about the ring cams, because the thing with the ring cam is that obviously from a security and from a security standpoint, it's great because you can see who's in your front porch and all that. But now it's like also another layer of laziness, because now it's like people don't go to open their door. They'll be wherever and they'll be like, ¿Qué tú quieres? And it's like, now people can't even be bothered to like look at the people in their door. Like, I'm telling you, we are going to end up like all the people on Wall-E.
No, I don't want that to be the case. No, I always say that. I'm always like, tú vas a ver, I don't want to be that round.
Yeah. Isn't Wall-E underappreciated?
I love him.
Like, I love Wall-E. And it's so interesting. That movie barely has dialogue.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it really doesn't.
It really doesn't. It's just one long-ass silent film.
Yeah, sort of, yeah. We're going to all end up like Wall-E. Do it up.
No, I don't want to. I go to the gym too much to end up like with people in Wall-E.
You wouldn't even know it.
That's the sad part. That's the sad part, because that's how it happens. It's like, I gained 2 pounds. I gained 2 pounds. Yeah, but 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 50,
Yeah, and that's how you end up in a size 45.
Oh, no, and that's how I wind up having a show on TLC.
Yeah, my 600-pound life. You got me into that show. So, anyway, bueno, that was an interesting one. Hopefully next week we can do this in person again.
Well, next week we're going to have to do it in person. Actually, next week I'm very excited because you and I are going to hit a lot of the Sobe Wine and Food Festival events.
I better have my full taste back next week, because I'm going to tell you, we're doing the Burger Bash, right?
Yeah, yes, we are.
Okay, I have not had like red meat in like 2.5 months. I haven't. I on myself, I've cut it out of my diet. But I am going to that day make Seth proud, and I am going to have burgers. So do it out. Watch me have a bite or two of a burger. And be like, I'm done. Yeah.
Knowing you, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, it's funny because I can eat. I'm not petite.
No.
But when I see a lot of food around me, I'm like, oh, I'm full. I had an olive. I'm full.
Como que tú te llenas por los ojos.
Yeah. I do. I'm like, oh. I can't anyway. So, well, everybody, that was episode 191. Hopefully, the Corona Chronicles are over.
Yes.
This week. We hope everybody listened, laughed, and learned. And as remember, grab your pastelito, your croqueta, and your cafecito, and have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, man.
And thank you if you've made it this far. Thank you for joining us despite our audio sounding crunchy.
Yeah. But you know, we love you, and we listen. We gotta get the episode out. That's all that matters.
Yes. So anyway, have a great weekend, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
Bye. Pero Let Me Tell You is co-hosted by Darian Borges and Ismaeliano, produced by Ismaeliano, and our theme, Pero Let Me Tell You Freestyle, is composed by Michael Angelo Lomlaplex, the official gay guy. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes.